Okay, I guess we gave a couple of minutes for the people who were just finishing their lunch. Most likely, more people will be joining here. But thank you very much for finishing your lunch early and trying to attend this session. And I also want to thank you to Moov and the fintech DevCon team. I'm not sure anybody here, but giving this opportunity to present me during this event here. My name is Ravi Nagvekar. I'm going to show my introduction slide, but before I start, how many of you do actual coding? And because I'm interacting with the people outside, most of the people are in fintech and finance, doing RTP, ACH, not really doing hands-on codes, but there are a few people I interact who are actually coding the APIs for ACH and RTP. How many of you, can you raise your hand, how many of you actually doing the code here? Oh, yeah, quite a few. Nice. And how many of you are currently using AI in your current either production system or maybe the staging environment? Oh, only few. And how many of you are using ChatGPT for finding the code or writing the code? Okay, nice. One last question. I know this is too much, but I'm trying to be interactive so that people don't fall asleep after their lunch. How many of you got woken up in middle of the night for failed deployment? Like there is an rollout for weekend or maybe during the week, your deployment failed and then you get the call for try to fix the deployment. I see quite a few hands here. Nice, nice. So about myself, I'm Ravi Nagvekar. I'm currently working with Amazon Web Services, supporting generative AI for their strategic account. What does that mean is we have some of the largest accounts, including some of the greatest and best financial institutions in North America. Some of those are either there in journey in the cloud, or some of those are already in the cloud. So currently they are in process of adopting more generative AI. And in financial institutions, I guess you guys are maybe more aware, adopting AI or large language model or foundation model is very restrictive. It's not very straightforward process. You try to propose an AI in your current application or in your current workflow, the first hurdle you face is your cyber team. Like there was one example recently where one of the financial institutions, I don't want to mention their name, but they implemented generative AI for their client or customer service applications. And one of their customer who tried to trick the prompt and he actually got the credit card number and CVV number for some of their customer. So it create more difficulties for other people to adopt those. So for this session, it's not in the scope for how to adopt the generative AI, but I'm trying to convince the people how can they implement generative AI in their CI/CD platform. But my job in current role is how to help my strategic account customer to deploy those generative AI applications in the production using cloud services. I was supposed to talk more about AWS services, but then I got my own compliance issue, and then they restrict my presentation to talk more generic about CI/CD and development. So there are more issues to adopt generative AI these days. So I have next 35 minutes left, so I'm going to try to cover what's generic overview of AI, what are agents, and how those agents can help enhance your development workflow as well as your CI/CD workflow. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about agentic AI. Few of you, yes, nice. And how many of you are aware of this? I guess these days with the ChatGPT buzzwords, everybody is aware of what generative AI is. But I just want to go over quick basic before we talk about agents and using AI in your CI/CD platform. So machine learning, I guess machine learning is something not new, or artificial is also not something new. It was the idea first circulated 20 years back, where people were trying to mimic how our brain work. So consider this as a nested Russian doll, where outmost layer is artificial intelligence, which is the grand visions of machine learning. And then you have a subset there, which is machine learning, which you don't need to hard code about how to train or do the program for the machine. You feed the data to machine, and then machine learn how to do a programming or how to take the actions or how to write the software. Next is a neural network, which is also, I guess everybody aware that we have a neuron in our brain. So neural network is nothing but trying to mimic how our brain neuron work, and some of the channel like next to a deep learning, which try to make those channels which ultimately make the decisions while you are programming or you're implementing AI. And center of that is generative AI, which name itself can be definitive, the AI which can generate something. So generative AI, which generate text, code, images, as well as videos. So ChatGPT is one of the form of the generative AI. We have Claude and other models where you can go and queue the text, or you can give instructions and it summarize or give you output in the text. Or there are other models which can generate images as well as the videos. Similar generative AI tools are used these days for your development and CI/CD workflow, where it can generate the code, it can generate the steps, it can explain the codes, or it can create a documentation for your code which is written by someone else. So what are the agents? Anybody aware what does the agents mean? So let's make it as a simple formula. Agent is like you give a goal plus planning plus actions and then feedback loop. We at AWS recently launched Agentic Core, which is a platform where you can use AWS platform to create the agents. What does that mean is I don't know how many of you use Lambda. It's a similar capability we are offering in generative AI, where you use this service to define your goals, and then you can integrate that with the different large language models to do the reasoning, and then integrate with the tools like Lambda or your serverless infrastructure to take the actions. So we have, I'm talking more from the development perspective and the CI/CD perspective. We have a few agents which are offered as part of this Agentic Core platforms. Those are code agents, which you can give the prompt or input or text or narrative, and it can write the code. Again, when we'll go further for the further slides, I will explain how they can code from your existing code base, or they can implement the best practices which are there currently in the industry. Then we have QA agents which can analyze your pipeline, as well as the release agents which can monitoring or deploy your code in the production. So this is how Agentic AI's agents component look like. So in center we have agent, which is the orchestrator for your agentic workflow or agentic deployment. We at AWS heavily customize our Lambda behind the scenes to make it as agents for AWS service offering. But the there are various other offerings available in the market as well. These agents interact with other agents as well as the users who are giving the goals for these agents to take actions. And you see on the top the prompt templating. That's where you actually create the personality for the agents, or you can give the instruction to the agents. Example, I don't know how many of you wrote the actual instruction to any of the large language model. But the way you give personality is you can write a prompt to the foundation model that assume you are an expert developer. You are expert developer for Go language and write a code for API gateway or API with the best practices adhered to current industry standard as well as specific to your company. So that agents now get the persona of a API developer, and if you try to ask something else, that agent will react differently. If you ask out of the syllabus question, then the agents will like, oh, I don't know how to write this. Even though the broader foundation model know how to write, but now that foundation model is in persona of a API writer for a certain language. And then we have a memory. Memory in the agent that makes AI agent different from a normal chatbot. I guess chatbots are there for quite a while, and you see some of the sites, when you explore them, a pop-up comes on the site and it's like a static, very rule-based chatbot. But the memory in the agents, what that makes different is the memory where agents keep their historical data. It learns from its previous actions as well as the instructions given from its users or some of the other agents it is interacting. And the last part is very crucial, is tools. Tools are where agents interact. Tools are where agents take actions. So if we consider large language model or foundation model in the agentic AI, they are the brain. But the tools are where it takes actions. Let's say you have a Jira board, or you are using Jira, or you are using Lambda. Once the foundation model finishing the reasoning, it defines the actions, and that's where agent take actions about go to the Jira, fetch up the data for this particular projects or particular actions which developer need to take, prepare a plan, and accordingly execute the Lambda which it has access to. So the tools are a very crucial part of the agentic AI and for the agents to take the actions. I put this slide, I guess some of the people may already know, and this could be a boring, but this is a slide I'm trying to explain and try to align or justify how can AI or agentic AI can be beneficial for the development. As most of you are already aware, not these days, but developers are in their regular day spend most of their time creating the repetitive code, doing the repetitive task, or using someone else's code to write their own repetitive functions or deployment, right? And then with the new developer comes with their own new styles. Like a project has started, there's a developer who's working on most of the project development, and all of a sudden the switch happens, new developer comes, he comes with his own preferred tools, and then you start customizing the existing code for the new tools which he's bringing into the team. And then the documentation part. One of the challenge I see when I interact with most of the AWS client is there are quite often team changes and team shift happens. The developer who actually develop the codes don't leave any very good documentations, and then the people who are taking over the projects don't have any idea, and they have to go to this millions of the lines of the code to understand what need to be done or what is the code actually doing for the company. Also, I was there for last week, one of the one of the client in Virginia, and our meeting was supposed to 9 a.m. to talk about how to deploy some of the AWS services in their current infrastructure. All of a sudden, two people start getting little anxiety, start building anxiety, and they left the meeting room. That's because they start getting the Slack messages about a deployment which failed yesterday night, and then they are the crucial people who were working on the developing that code. So these are some of the challenge, and agentic AI or generative AI, which can help to address some of those challenges in the development. So when we apply generative AI to development workflow or a development environment, there are various different ways we can implement AI. One is about code generation, where you give the prompt and you give the detailed instructions about what the code should be, how the application look like, and then AI generate that code or functions for you. Not sure, I guess some of you already use ChatGPT to write functions and code. I was talking with a few of the people yesterday night during the dinner. There was a gentleman who did not have any development experience, but he explained me how he used ChatGPT to write a function to push the file to the cloud. So that's code generation capability which generative AI can bring to the development team. The another functionality which we can implement is providing the capability to developer to write the code in their IDE using AI agents. Like the AI agents, when you are using in your IDE, these days AI agents context windows are almost 200K to 1 million, which I guess Google Gemini is offering. That means most of your code base can provide as a context to the foundation model or large language model, and then they can aware what is your code writing style, what was your previous functions, how can you use a different library for your existing capability which you are building. The next capability we can enable using generative AI is legacy transformation. And this is very crucial for financial industry and fintech. And I'm working almost all of the client about the transformations and then capability we launch with Amazon Q. Amazon Q, I'm not sure anybody of you use, but there are the new features we launched during last reInvent, which is called Q for transformation. That means if you have a legacy code, and most of the legacy code which I'm working on currently is mainframe or COBOL or Java 8, where people are struggling to migrate their mainframe code to either from COBOL to Java, or there are some other legacy languages. And then we have stuck with some of this Java 8 code, which people are struggling to migrate to Java 12. So the way we ourselves in Amazon implemented, I guess we have migrated almost 3,000 applications from Java 8 to Java 12. And original estimate was around, before generative AI, was around 2 years to migrate those applications. But after we integrate or implement the Q transformation capability, I guess we were able to migrate almost 3,000 applications within 3 months. So that is a capability we can bring in. And like my recent meeting, I was talking with the team, and they were working with one of the major financial vendor who they're dependent on their ACH and other capability. So they're trying to build that capability in-house. The last whole decade, they worked with that financial vendor to build that capability and develop that capability together. So the challenges they have is they have a proprietary code from the vendor, as well as they have their custom code which they develop by themselves. So in order to build that capability out of those millions of lines of the code, first find out what is the code is doing. What is the capability they need to extract, and which is the code they should either avoid, or they can create a capability in their own language or in their own in their own implementation. So the way we implemented is we use Amazon Q developer using Cloud model behind the scenes and was able to find out the code capabilities, what are the functions they use for certain capabilities, what is the business logic they should extract from the code and implement using their own implementation or own code base. So this is one of the quick starter for them to build that capability in-house. Another capability you can bring into the development team using AI is multi-language support. Let's say you are currently using Java, and then you want to port your code to Go for better performance. In real-time scenario, that's lots of work for many developers to first find the code, analyze the code, and then rewrite that code in Go language. And again, you need to have either skills to have both the language, or you have to hire the developers with two different capabilities. With generative AI, it is very easy. I mean, it is very much possible to do in short term of time, and you can have a human in the loop to analyze that codes once it is implemented as well. So this is how it looked like in ID. I'm not sure how many of you have used this, but I just want to show how can code in ID look like. How can you ask the agent to write the code? Here it is. You can see how AI agent is integrated in your development workflow currently, which developer are using, and then how it is easy for the developer to write a natural query or natural language to, or give the instruction to the foundation model to write the functions of the code. So now that we talk about the development challenges, the actual fun begins when we do the deployment and we use CI/CD. If we are developing the code, CI/CD is where we actually come to know whether our code is going to work or not. That's where the challenges and tests currently exist. So how many of you, I don't know, dealt with the flaky pipeline? But yeah, quite a few. So normally the code works well in your local environment, but once you start your deployment and you start seeing the code failures or deployment failures, that's where the challenge starts. You don't know where exactly sometimes the issue is. Is that the code is the issue? Is the environment is the issue? Is your pipeline or the QA test is the issue, or you have some of the network hiccups in your current environment? So those are the challenge, and those are very visible problem in current environment. And when you start troubleshooting those, you feel like a black box for your own current environment as well. This is not just a technical problem. And I was talking with some of the people, and we were working with their recent deployment. The meeting which I talked, where a couple of developers just left that meeting. And after that, when we regrouped, some of their senior leadership was very frustrated. They were, the argument they were making is the amount of time we are spending on this failed pipeline is amount of time we are lacking with our competitor. Like some of the competitor, they're trying to compete with online banking and digital banking. They are trying to compete with them, and when they're struggling with this pipeline, they were delaying their features to be released. So he was trying to justify that the pipeline which are failing is also causing their business problem. It's not just a technical problem. So that much time they are lacking with their competitor, and that much time other customers are taking to adopt their competitive product, not their product. So this is a serious problem. And this is our current CI/CD pipeline look like. Tell me if this is something not aligned with you. anything is different from your current pipelines? So here in this pipeline, I mean, this is the current state of a pipeline, obviously. So we have commit, build, unit test, integration test, code review, and then staging and production deployment. Most of these stages are independent in current environment. And some of those are very manual steps. Like we were talking with few of our customers. They literally do a push button for deploying their code in the production. So, and there are lots of manual decisioning involved when they deploy code to their higher environment. Like they normally do a 1 or 2 hour review meeting before they push the code to the production. There's too much time for almost 40, 50 plus people in that meeting room. And when this deployment or production release fail, a human in the team get notification, either Slack or incident or text. That person comes and then they start to review the code. They take the decision manually, not sure that is the correct decision to fix that code or that deployment. Sometimes it is like a patchwork to make sure that, to avoid that situation at that time, which could be a disaster coming after that. And then that human decide to push that code to the production. So it's a efficient process, but it is still not an intelligent process. That means there's always a person or his view are considered while deploying this pipeline or code. What if we think that our pipeline should be smart, like intelligent enough to learn, to adapt, and then analyze any further failures going to happen in this CI/CD pipeline? That is where generative AI is going to work. So in typical agentic AI, these are the major milestone or steps which perform, which are either to the previous CI/CD pipeline as well, but I put that in a broader context here. So CI is where the agents are going to do a continuous integrations. They not just analyze your code, or build their code. They also enhance your code as well as optimize your code. And then while analyzing, they test the codes and predict the failures in your pipelines way before that it can happen. You have a quality assurance agents which analyze your code base as well, write a code test or test case for your code deployment, and it can adapt to the API evolutions happening in your CI/CD pipeline. And these quality agents are not just smart, but they are also contextual aware that if your code is changed for certain functionality in the code, they only develop the test cases for that particular functions of the code snippet. Then you have a continuous deployment agents. These agents understand the risk profile of your deployment. They are well aware of your business context as well, and they analyze the metrics as well as if they detect any failures possibility, then they roll back the code to the previous version. So security and compliance agents, this is very crucial for fintechs and financial industry, where these agents can continuously scan your codes or your implementation for your PCI and other compliance requirement. And these agents can block or can alert the respective team if they detect if there is any risk for the compliance as well. One last agents I want to highlight here is the observability agents, which is post-deployment to the productions, where these agents are not like typical just monitoring tools, or not like a CloudWatch or Splunk. These agents are intelligent enough to correlate various different matrices or logs where they can predict service A failure can cause service B and C failures as well. So these are These are some of the agents which can be implemented in CI/CD platform. And be aware, these are either you can develop this capability in-house, or else there are multiple vendors which are developing these agents. I'm not sure you start seeing the trend now where some of these largest platforms or vendors, they not just offer API, they offer agents. So if you have a development agents and you need to pull some of the compliance report, compliance vendor can provide you an agents which your company or your agents in your current application can interact and talk, fetch the informations, and keep that conversation continuously. So these are the capability coming. You must be asking, can this be a single agent? No, this can't be, because you want that agent to have a specific knowledge base for that particular process. And again, these agents, I'm putting this as a very short description here, but rolling out these agents can be a CI/CD pipeline for itself. Like example, if you have a compliance agent, which is taking care of maintaining compliance for your CI/CD deployment, that itself could be a pipeline where you have your model risk officer verifying your models, which is used behind the scenes for this compliance agents. You have a team which is working on training that particular foundation models with latest and greatest informations from all the compliance or federal sites, where they fetch the latest and greatest information, train your model, test your model, and then once your model risk officer approve that model, then that will be a part of your compliance risk management agent. I hope everybody's still awake. All right. So then the pipeline which I mentioned before, the legacy pipeline, this is how that pipeline look like, where now it is more intelligent and more smart enough with the various different agents to deploy your software. Here again, I want to reiterate again that you have a code generation agents, which is develop the code faster with the best practices, which is implemented in your organizations. The development agents in this pipeline is also aware the newest changes in the syntax of the latest and greatest Python libraries or the Java library. This agent is also aware about newest library, which is available maybe a fintech or financial application deployment. Then you have a test generation agent, which is automatically create the test cases. Again, these agents will be intelligent enough to have the history about your previous failures, previous deployment, and then these agents will be also interacting with your development agent to find what is the development teams currently working on. So when it generates the test cases, it's focused on validating those test cases before pushing it to the next stage. Then we have deployment agents or agents which is going to be automate your code deployment to the staging or production environment. These agents are well aware of your existing environments, your current infrastructure, and your current production deployment requirement. Let's say you have a release coming up nearby the Black Friday, and you release the new features which is going to be used by major retailers for their credit card or financial processing. So these agents are well aware of what is currently released as part of your product or a code, and what is the timeline it is trying to release that code. So accordingly, these agents deploy your infrastructure as well to make sure it matches the compute or storage requirement for your application. And then we have monitoring agents, which is going to get more smarter. I'm not sure any of you are using agentic monitoring right now, but these days there's a trend about enhanced observability, where you have a central observability stack, which is integrated in various different monitoring tools or your log managing or risk monitoring capabilities, which is going to have a drastic change in next 12 to 15 months, where your observability stack will have observability AI agents which correlate all of your logs, all of your different vendor tools in your current implementation, and give you a holistic view of what can break in your system after your current deployment or your next deployment. So we talk about how your development and CI/CD pipeline should enhance with the agents. There are next stage is about implementation. There are various different options available. Like I work for AWS, so I can prefer to have my clients to use AWS managed service offering. But there are various different open source tools also available, like LangChains, Crew AI, and then not only AWS, but Azure and Google offer their managed offering as well. My recommendation is start with the managed offering, because you try to implement your own LangChain deployments for your agents. It is a little complicated. It will take some time. There's also a learning curve for most of your team. So rather than struggle for initial deployment of agents, have a managed platform for your current application workflow or CI/CD, and then gradually shift to the open source once you have expertise built in. When you're developing or implementing these agents in your current environment, I see when I interact with few clients recently, they just do a generic agents, like deploy a pipeline. Make sure when you are implementing or you're designing your architecture for your agentic workflow, try to have a task-specific agents deployed in your environment. And that means if you have applications which is maybe a payment or ACH specific, try to develop an agents which is very much features or contextually aware for that particular application or that stage. Otherwise, you will have the same problem what you have in current environment in your agentic environment as well. One crucial part for implementation is your security integrations. Agents are going to interact with your data. Agents are going to interact with your various different internal systems as well as your financial system. So if they leverage those access, that's a critical risk as well for your organization or application. So make sure when you implement, you have this least least privilege access for the agents as well. And then you have try to do a sandboxing of those environments so that any particular agents behaving abnormally is not going to have a broader effect on overall development or CI/CD platform. So the goal is not to replace the human, but build a human-like capability or intelligent capability in your current environment. So the next part of the implementation is how to implement, right? So you just don't start to boil the oceans. Don't start building holistic agentic CI/CD pipeline or agentic development environment. Try to start where it is least impacted, like implement generative AI agents for your development workflow. Give the capability to your developer in their IDE capability. That's where you have a least impact and you can increase the productivity or expedite your development cycle. GitHub or Git repo or Jenkins, that's where most of your codes or pipeline exists, and that's where your agent also should live. When you start integration with your system, I guess the way you can start is integrating the agents with your observability platform, where agents are aware of your logs, your monitoring tools, and try to integrate with them project tracking system as well, where they can correlate your current progress with what's happening in the logs, so they can create that holistic pictures of what is currently in progress for your development and CI/CD platform. Again, governance is non-negotiable, especially in the finance and fintech industry. For any of this initial stage, or not initial stage, but throughout this agentic CI/CD pipeline or release cycle, there should be always an approval cycle where once agent is decide to roll back or deploy your code, there should be human in the loop who can approve that process before it actually deployed to the production. Also, must have the ability is rollback capability. If your agent is deploying something, you should have a capability in your platform to roll back that decision as well. I want to give you an idea about how agent definition look like. This snippet is where you define your agents, and if you see the structure of this agent definitions, you have a definition of the agents on top, and then you have given the goals to these agents in that next cycle. I don't see it from here, but here in this agent, this is a QA agents where I am trying to give him the instructions about if there is a code change, do a certain QA test on that code. So this agent is intelligent enough to find a diff in the code, and then what is the difference in the newer code is going to write the test cases only for that particular code. And I'm going to share this, and maybe the team can share. There's a Git repository also about how to write a different agents for the different capability. Here are some of the real case use case scenario which I have listed down based on my interaction with some of the AWS clients. I'm still using the AWS terms, which I'm not supposed to use, but still I can't resist to talk about those. So there is a major bank which I work with them in New York, which are using agentic AI to keep their infrastructure with the compliance. So they have this agentic review process deploy, which review their infrastructure as code for SOX and PCI compliance. So these agents, before any deployments of their infrastructure, it's actually validate. I guess they have almost 100 plus of compliance requirement before they even launch a EC2 instance. So they have this regulatory compliance agents implemented currently, which resulted them for 90% reductions of their compliance failures, which was theirs last year. And then one of the client I work with in Virginia, they have this trading platform where the agents are actually analyzing the core transaction processing. Any changes in their core transaction processing, they have a QA test process implemented, which is supporting to their existing humans in the loop, but majority of work is done by agentic AI these days. And then there's another client which I'm working in Virginia. They have implemented this mainframe to or COBOL to Java migration agentic software, where they are trying to exit from current third-party financial vendor. So they have this millions of lines of the code, which is written in the COBOL. So they have this agentic workflow defined, which goes into certain capability, extract that code, rewrite that code in Java, and then deploy that to the newer application. So as part of that, they're also documenting that process about the applications. One of the key capability I worked with them was analyzing their store procedures and SQLs as well. So these agents also bring the capability about rewriting their store procedures or SQLs, which are part of the whole application deployment. With that, I want to highlight 3 key takeaways. Again, the agents are not replacement for the humans. Agents are here to enhance the capability for developers as well as the operation team. Compliance is non-negotiable in the finance and fintech. So if you decide to implement AI agents in your development as well as your CI/CD pipeline, make sure you have a stringent control in place. And Third is start small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start with the smaller capabilities with the agentic AI, like observability I mentioned before, or um, uh, test case generation use cases. Again, companies are making changes with their agentic AI deployment. Shift is going to happen in next 3 and 4 years. You have to decide whether you are part of this revolutions or you're going to watch that from the side of the revolution. So hopefully after, after my session here, when you go back to your team, you can able to convince them to implement generative AI or agentic AI in your current CI/CD platform. Thank you very much.